us online. Karina, can you please start to record the meeting? And AV, can you start to broadcast the meeting? Then we can start. Thanks, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. Please let me know when we're ready to go.
Hi, Sarah. Now the meeting is being broadcasted. You can start anytime now. Thanks.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Good morning. My name is Sarah Gelgor, and I'm the chair of the Compliance Audit Committee. I'm joined today by my fellow committee members, Lawrence D'Souza and Ramin Faraji. The committee administrator has confirmed that we have quorum, so I will now call meeting 10 of the Compliance Audit Committee to order. Welcome, everyone. Today's meeting is being held with committee members, city staff, and parties participating both by video conference and in person at City Hall in Committee Room 2. City Hall is open to the public, and anyone is welcome to attend the meeting at City Hall today. The public may continue to participate electronically by video conference. This meeting is also being live streamed online at www.youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. I ask everyone for their patience with any delays or technical issues. I'd like to ask everyone to please keep your microphones on mute unless you are speaking. Members, please ensure that your video is turned on at all times. As part of each agenda item, I will ask members to raise their hands or unmute their microphones if they wish to ask questions or speak. When voting, members, please raise your hand in front of your camera to indicate your vote. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the Compliance Audit Committee acknowledges the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Members, are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your microphone to let me know. And seeing no such expressions, may I have a motion to confirm the minutes of the meeting on July 3rd, 2024? I'm looking for one of the members. Thank you, Member Faraji, if that could be noted. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. I'll now outline the procedure and format of the committee meeting today. We have one item on the agenda, which is a compliance audit application. Before we consider the application, I'll outline the procedure and format for considering it. The one application is with regard to item EA 10.1, Compliance Audit Report for the City of Toronto, re Antonius Mantas. This report was prepared by William Molson, CPA. William will present the findings of the report, and following his presentation, the committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions of the auditor. If present, the applicant for the compliance audit report and the candidate will have the opportunity to speak to this item. They'll be given sufficient time to address the application. After each speaker, Compliance Audit Committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions. If the committee decides it needs to meet in closed session to deliberate in private, I will move a motion to close the meeting, at which point members of the public and media will be moved into the WebEx lobby or asked to leave the room and will be readmitted once the committee resumes public session. After we have completed our closed session deliberation, we will resume in public and the committee will make its decision at that time. Are there any preliminary motions from members? All right, seeing none, let's please proceed with item 1. So EA 10.1 Compliance Audit Report for the City of Toronto, Antonius Mantas. I'll now turn it over to the auditor for his presentation, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yes? Thanks very much for the request to prepare the report and the opportunity to speak this morning. The brief comments I'm going to make do not replace the July 4th report, which I'm sure that you have. So it just intends to present it in summary form. Is it possible or necessary to put the PowerPoint on screen, or is that something you want to do that? You want to do that, or shall I just proceed?
I'm fine to have you proceed unless my fellow members prefer.
That's fine. Okay, I'll just,
Thank you.
rather than referring to pages of the PowerPoint, I'll go through it and say what's on it. All right, the chronology here is that Mr. Mantas filed his nomination paper on August the 2nd of 2022 to run in Ward 22. June 29th, 2023, the applicant, Kevin Weiner, did submit a request for a compliance audit on the grounds that no Form 4 had been filed. So there was no way to review or assess or consider Mr. Mantas' campaign. In July of 19th of 2023, the Compliance Audit Committee determined that there should be a compliance audit and retained me November the 10th, and July 4th of this year, the report was issued. So the objective of a compliance audit is to report on apparent conventions of the Municipal Elections Act. And the magic in those words is that the scope of the compliance auditor's work is not limited to the concerns raised by the applicant. So as a compliance auditor, while going along, if I see anything else that may not have been mentioned in the complaint, I also address that. Furthermore, the wording, it's quite interesting, refers to apparent contravention. So I'm not expressing a legal opinion here. I'm just saying that as a compliance auditor, based on my procedures and the evidence I had before me, these appeared to be contraventions. In fact, they may not be. A legal interpretation could come out differently, but that's significant. It's apparent contraventions. The procedures that I followed was I obtained from Mr. Mantas a draft Form 4 financial statement in the form that normally would be submitted that he did not submit. So I got a copy of a Form 4, albeit unfiled. I went through all the detail in the Form 4 prepared by the candidate and very closely compared that to records that I built up separately in software to see if I came to the same conclusion, basically. I reconciled that to such support, copies of invoices, that sort of thing, bank statements that were provided by the candidate. I looked at Mr. Weiner, the applicant's request for the compliance audit to make sure that the scope of my review included at least the concerns expressed. And in the, I accounted for apparently omitted expenses. For example, there were large signs, but there was no cost for signposts. Well, you have to put them up somehow. So there were a few items that appeared to have been omitted. I'll get back to those. Because the records, as we'll see, were not really assembled and available in the form as required by the Act, and as well, there had not been an auditor to go through it and dig out various materials. The procedures that I undertook were extended to include certain personal bank records of the candidate. And the reason for this was to get comfort around the reporting of revenue, to get a sense as to whether there were apparent omissions from revenue, whether funds had been collected and not used for purposes of the campaign. Spoiler alert, conclusion was no. There was no apparent evidence of that. So I also looked very closely at the information on the candidate signs and on brochure material, and then did a moderately deep dive using public information of the histories and of the candidate's website and the domain that was used. We'll take a look at that as well. And that again spoke to the matter of could it be the case that there were additional revenues that had been simply left out? Because we have in the situation of other audits found that candidates will undertake fairly ambitious campaigns to raise money off the books. So I did go through procedures to see whether there were concerns, appropriate concerns in that area. I also had discussions with the candidate himself, who was very, very helpful throughout, like numerous conversations over an extended time period. My findings include the following. He did not file the required Form 4 financial statement. That applies to everybody, regardless of whether you are over or under $10,000 in revenue and expense. There are significant record keeping and related duties under the Municipal Elections Act, and those were not complied with. The candidates' records were not great. The significance of this is that unlike the federal and provincial regimes, because there are so many municipal returns in the province, and it's every 4 years, and you need an army of people to review and keep track of this, the legislation specifically intends to charge the candidate with the responsibility to be his or her own policeman. And this is, while this concept does operate federally and provincially, from the point of view of enforcement and maintaining the integrity of the Act, it's particularly important that the requirements imposed on the candidate should be reasonably satisfied, because there's nobody else to do it. As I mentioned, I did do additional procedures to deal with the involving personal bank records, website review, and also the email history, the candidate's email history, going through some hundreds of emails to see if there was any evidence there of additional revenues being collected. There was not. So that's why the report, it doesn't say there were no monetary contributions. I just said I didn't come across any evidence of additional monetary contributions at all. I did identify that there were some omitted contributions in kind, being the signposts that were referred to, and also the use of the room for the V-Day party, $275 in total, which had the effect of putting the candidate over $10,000 in expenses, which would appear to mean that he should have had an audit. So in addition to not filing the Form 4, he also did not file an audit opinion. this overage is small. And before moving from this point, I just want to bring to the committee's attention that the total of estimates that were used in the assembly of the return by the candidate and is audited by me are just under $1,100 because there was certain invoice material missing. So we have an overage of $150, which is after making estimates of almost 1,100. So I think that the overage did exist, but we're in the realm of using estimates. It's not the case that there was, oh my goodness, here's a huge invoice for a whole bunch of signs that was left out. That is not the case. I want to just refer, but without doing a dive into them, just so that the committee has them fresh in their mind. The appendices to my compliance audit report are a little bit different from what is commonly the case in a compliance audit. The first appendix, Appendix A, is the very, very common one where there's a column that says, this is what the candidate said, and here's some adjustments, and here's what I think the numbers should be. That is there using the numbers that Mr. Mantas provided to me in the unfiled Form 4, and then this very small number of adjustments I made, the in-kind, and then the adjusted numbers. Appendix B lists in detail the MEA requirements of section 88.22, where it lists about 20 odd, thou shalt do this. And I'll put in some columns on the right to say, we're okay with this, or no, it wasn't done. And that's to sort of evaluate the extent of non-compliance and significance with 88.22. The third appendix, Appendix C, is a copy of the return that was prepared and given to me by the candidate and not submitted. Appendices D and E provide information showing the brochures, which have a website and Gmail address on them. And then at E, it shows that there was a donate button on the candidate's website. But the evidence is that this donate button was not activated. So if you set up a political website, it's got all kinds of stuff automatically populated. But there was no evidence that the button had actually been activated. So those are the appendices that you'll want to keep somewhat fresh in your mind. Returning back to the overall findings, the last point was that although it was a tiny bit beyond the scope, it was a natural concern was to whether this was a spoiler candidacy, which is an issue because the incumbent who was successfully elected had the same name, last name, and Mr. Mantas has a first name that is earlier in the alphabet. And in the report, I've talked about the report contains the actual voting results. So there was no evidence that there was a spoiler candidacy that I could identify that saying, yes, this is definitely it. I did make inquiries of third parties. Did you hear anything about it? What's going on in the ward? Why is he not running in the ward where he lives? Well, Jay Robinson was there, not somebody you could unseat at the time. And there was no evidence of a spoiler candidacy. And it is not the case that the voting results were so close that a spoiler candidacy would have made it, that the outcome was changed. Even if you say, well, statistically, there must have been some spoiler effect, but the numbers do not support that supposition at all. So in the, jumping over the failure to maintain records, which are detailed at Appendix B, he didn't run all his expenses through the bank account. the revenues were, except it was a self-funded campaign. So there are a lot of contributions in kind where the candidate went and paid for stuff, but he didn't make a deposit into the candidate bank account and then pay the expense from the candidate bank account. Hence, these are treated as in gifts in kind. So there's a bit of a soft spot there. There was some defect in valuing these contributions in kind. Some of the expenses that were paid, there were not copies of invoices, whether they're invoices from candidate mandate that he paid personally or directly. And in a number of cases where I said, can you find the invoice for this to support it? Like phone bills or the cost of setting up the website, et cetera. He just said he just didn't know where they were, could not find them. So that would appear to be a departure from the requirement. You got to retain records for all this stuff as well. So that's the somewhat exhaustive, thorough, I hope, treatment of section 88.22. So the conclusions that I arrived at are that, firstly, Mr. Mantas did not comply with reporting requirements because he didn't submit a Form 4, and it appears also there was no audit report. There were deficiencies. He did not maintain the required records as thoroughly as contemplated by the legislation. The applicant's concerns appear to be substantially correct, that, hey, folks, we need something to look at. There was no financial evidence of a spoiler candidacy. And finally, Mr. Mantas was very cooperative throughout this process. And I believe that had he believed that it would be this time consuming, he would have been quite happy to submit the Form 4 either by the required deadline or pay the $500 for the extended period. So it was a bit of I think it was a bit of an imposition in a trial for Mantas. And the only final comment, of course, as the committee is aware, while the MEA is a very strict regime, the committee does have latitude and discretion as to how it chooses to dispose of this matter. The fact that apparent non-compliance has been identified does not mean that the compliance committee is obligated to do something, and that is a legal opinion, even though I'm not supposed to say that. So, are there any questions that arise?
Thank you very much, Mr. Molson. It's a very thorough report. I appreciate the detail that you've gone into beyond sort of what was contained in the application. And thank you for your presentation as well. The summary is excellent. I'm going to provide an opportunity for my fellow committee members to ask any questions if they have any.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. I'm fine as well.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, I'm going to ask if either the applicant or their agent are present. And hearing no response.
I'm present.
Oh, I apologize. I'm seeing a sort of screen with boxes. All right. Thank you. Do you wish to make any comments?
Excuse me. So just now, through you, Madam Chair, you were asking applicant and his legal, right? They are not present, but the candidate is present.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for that clarification. All right, Mr. Mantas, I was going to come to you next. Now's your opportunity if you wish to make any comments.
I would just like to thank for Mr. Molson for being kind to me throughout the entire process. We had numerous conversations. At no point did I feel any intimidation or, he's out to get me kind of thing. But look, I just want to apologize for not filing on time. And The only reason I didn't file on time is because last year I was going through a lot of traumatic experiences through my family, which I don't want to get into. Okay, my brother passed away, and my head wasn't in the right headspace to, respond to these emails and to file the paperwork. But aside from that, I ran a very honest, fair campaign. I've worked in the ward for a long time. I have a lot of friends who have small businesses in the ward, and I just decided to do something because I was in the position where I was financially able to do it, and I had the flexibility because I run my own business. And I thought it would be something courageous and fun. And I can't say it was the best experience, to be honest, because from the get-go, I got numerous phone calls, a little bit of harassment, but like some intimidation. And the best part was just meeting people in the ward and knocking doors for 3 months, and people calling you up and saying, hey, can you put your sign here? And that was a wonderful experience. But would I do this again? Probably not. But I just want to apologize for not filing on time. It wasn't something that I did intentionally or tried to hide anything. Like I said, I was very open with Mr. Molson, answered all his questions. And that's all I have to say.
Mr. Mantas, thank you. We very much appreciate your comments. We appreciate your cooperation and the fact that you chose to participate in our democratic process. Do either of my committee members have any comments to add?
No, Chair, I don't have any questions.
Okay. And Mr.
Neither do I,
Okay.
Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, I'd like a motion to go into a closed session, please, from one of the committee members. Member D'Souza, thank you. All those in favor? And I will read that motion that the Compliance Audit Committee recess its public session to meet in closed session to deliberate in private on item EA 10.1 Compliance Audit Report for the City of Toronto regarding Antonius Mantas, and to receive advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege. And if we could, okay, so now we're going to vote on it. Thank you. Member Faraji, I apologize, your camera is off, and we do need to have your camera on and have you vote, please. And he may be having technical difficulties.
Sorry with that. I was on mute, but I believe the video's been on the whole time. Maybe it's with outside the range. Maybe staff could confirm that.
No, I appreciate that. I'm not seeing it, but that's fine. If you could verbally confirm your vote then.
Yes, I'm good to proceed in a closed session.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So at this time, I'll ask the clerk to temporarily close the meeting to members of the public and to only provide access to members and staff for the closed session portion of this meeting.
I leave?
Madam Chair, the meeting room is unlocked, and we started to record the meeting again. You can start anytime now. Thanks.
Thank you. We have completed our closed session deliberations, and we will now turn it over to members of the committee to speak about the application. I understand that we don't have any comments, and so I'll ask the clerk to please display the motion on the screen, and I will read the decision. And so the Compliance Audit Committee considered the apparent contraventions identified in the audit report prepared by William Molson, Chartered Professional Accountant, CPA, of the election campaign finances of Antonius Mantas, and has decided not to commence a legal proceeding against the candidate for the apparent contraventions. The full decision will be posted on the Compliance Audit Committee's website on the City of Toronto site, and I would encourage anybody who's interested to read the decision. I would ask for a motion by one of our members, please. Member D'Souza, thank you. All in favor? Raise your hands. Thank you, and the motion carries. I'd like to thank the candidate and also Mr. Molson for your presentations today. And with that, we've concluded our business for today. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.